We go over to the next in line. That is Dr. Madhushmita Mahapatra, M22861. Novel technique of sutureless, glueless amniotic membrane grafting in acute Stevens-Johnson syndrome.
So shall I start?
Yes, please. Timer starts now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll be presenting a novel technique of sutureless, glueless amniotic membrane grafting in acute Stevens-Johnson syndrome. We don't have any financial interest. As we all know, SJS10 complex is an immune-mediated disorder characterized by widespread sloughing of the skin and the mucocutaneous junction, as seen in this picture. Around 40 to 80% of ocular rebound occur in acute Stevens-Johnson syndrome. This can occur in the form of erosion of the mucocutaneous junction, or in the form of true peeling of the epithelium of the conjunctiva and erosion of the conjunctiva and the cornea. This is a single level 1 evidence-based study which shows the efficacy of the amniotic membrane grafting in acute Stevens-Johnson syndrome by Dr. Namrata Sharma group. Traditional technique involved full thickness suture and placement of the amniotic membrane grafting and requirement of the good anesthetic team. Other sutureless techniques have been described in which uses fibrin glue and cyanoacrylate glue. Here we demonstrate and evaluate the amniotic membrane grafting with a new technique of amniotic membrane grafting without any glue or suture. Ours is a retrospective interventional case series. We reviewed all the file of the patient from 2016 January to January 2020 who were diagnosed to have SJS10 complex. Here demonstrating a video which shows our technique. This is the true peeling of the membrane. Our technique is a simple bedside sutureless glueless technique. First start with the preparation of the ring. We take the infant feeding tube number size, cut it to 9 centimeter. One end of the tube is dilated with the help of a blunt instrument. Other end is beveled with the help of the blade. And now this beveled end is threaded into the dilated end to form this symplectron ring. This ring is customizable and the size can vary according to the patients. Now we wrap the amniotic membrane around the tube. This amniotic membrane is fresh amniotic membrane. After removal of the epithelium, stromal surface down, we take a 10 into 6 centimeter of the rectangle, wrap the smaller end of the rectangle first, then the larger end of the rectangle over the ring. Now we are wrapping the larger end of the membrane. This is how the amniotic membrane after wrapping around over the tube. Then we insert this membrane at the bedside procedure. After cleaning the periocular tissue, the necrotic tissue are debrided and cleaned with the normal saline. After retracting the lower lid with the help of the Desmar retractor, with the help of the fingers, we push it to the superior fornix. Then after retracting with Desmar retractor, with the help of a cotton bud, we push it to the lower fornix where it snugly fits. Now the amniotic membrane which we had wrapped around is unfolded and spread over the lid margins. We spread with the help of the non-toothed forceps. This is how we spread properly over the margins. This is the picture of the patient showing before the debridation. This is after debridement. This is after placement of the amniotic membrane. This tube is a radio-opaque tube, and that's why we can identify it with the help of the X-ray. This radio-opaque material, and we also can see how snugly this tube is fit into the fornices. This tube is flexible, so if there is a little larger diameter of the tube that we are using, it can take a shape of the horizontally oval in the fornices. Around 2/3 of the patient demonstrated anti-epileptic and allopurinol as the most common risk factor, among which phenytoin is the most common of them. 18% patient, that is 43% of the patient underwent amniotic membrane grafting. Out of this 18, around 2 patients had mortality during the acute state, and the 2 we lost to follow-up in the later stage. So final sample size is around 14 with a mean follow-up duration of 25 months and minimum of 1 year. Mean age is 37.8 with female preponderance of 6 times in our follow-up group. Master chart showing all the parameters. Best corrected visual acuity could be documented in 12 patients, as 2 were mentally retarded. Around 90% of our patients had good visual acuity of more than 6/12, that is best corrected visual acuity. Many of the patient required adjuvant medical and surgical management in our study group in the form of autologous serum and systemic immunosuppressant for the
सफाई वाला भी सफाई कर दिया
core ocular surface and scleral lens. Persistent epithelial defect was the most common complication in the early phase of the follow-up, which occurred in around 40% of the patient. Most of them underwent amniotic membrane transplant and with tarsorrhaphy. Two of which could not underwent amniotic membrane transplant were managed in the later phase with the glue PCL technique for the corneal melt and impending perforation. Late margin keratinization, though it was present in all of our patients, only 4 of them, that is only 28%, had severe enough to lead to the late Viper keratopathy and were advised MMG, whereas only 1 of them could underwent MMG due to certain reasons. Other chronic sequelae were in the form of conjunctival hyperemia, neovascularization, corneal ectasia, or infection. What is the advantage of our technique? It is a sutureless, glueless, doesn't require any anesthesia or any special equipment, so can be done bedside. This is and this requires minimum learning curve. In last over the years, only residents are performing this technique bedside in our institutes. Sorry, I'm not able to move it. Disadvantage being the symblepharon formation in the early phase. What is the take-home message? Acute AMG is required under performed and valuable technique, which should be done. 40% of ocular involvement and meticulous follow-up and adequate adjuvant therapy can bring good outcome in these patients. So in a resource-poor country, this is a very important technique which can be done to prevent the devastating, sight-threatening for chronic complication of SJS. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Madhushmita. Judges, over to you, please.
Dr. Madhusmita, very nice and innovative technique. So did you face any case where there was sort of unfolding of that ring? Did it unfold at any time where you had kind of joined them together? Was there any patient, or it was like stable in place for all of your patients?
The majority of the patient, it was stable. Few of the patient, yes, it did unfold, but we always had a backup of extra ring with the amniotic membrane for immediate application.
Okay.
Anybody else, please? Any questions?
The ring which you are making, size of the ring, you are deciding depending on fornix and Partner Fisher width. Depending on each patient, you are taking measurement and just planning the ring, or it's standardized for all the case.
Sir, it can be customizable, yes. But in overall patient, the standard size that we use was 9.5 centimeter sized ring in adult and 8.5 in children, which was perfect for all the patient. But we can customize it with the help of the measuring rim to rim diameter from superior to inferior rim. Through the X-ray, we have noticed that it is just 8 millimeter deficient from the superior to inferior ring. So by calculating that, yes, we can customize the size with the formula of 2 pi r.
Any other questions? Okay, so if there are no other questions, shall we go on to the next paper? Dr. Madhushmita, thank you very much.
Thank you.